Hello everybody, welcome to Us Rusty Bucket. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already and drop a like on this video. It only takes 1 second and it makes a massive difference in how this video performs in the YouTube algorithm. It's hot takes, let's get into it. Also, just as a reminder, in case you missed the last episode, from here on out, these are going to be pretty much live reactions because Rudy is going to pick these out for me, just so that I can't get like a preconception of what my take is going to be. But yeah, let's get into it. As a Hawks fan, 2021 Trey was a fluke year. Trey Young is not an efficient player, and the most valuable part of his game is his playmaking, not scoring. That can be true and him still be a good and efficient player. For the most part, Trey Young has been around league average efficiency in terms of like true shooting percentage. I understand a lot of that comes from free throws being generated a lot, and that doesn't necessarily translate in a playoff setting. I just don't agree with the notion that he's not an efficient player. He maybe isn't like a hyper efficient player, but he's not necessarily an inefficient one either. And to say that's a fluke year, I would argue that's just also the only year that there was a good roster around him that really complemented his skill set, and since then things have been really weird and inconsistent around him. So I don't know. I do also think there was just, it definitely helped that the Sixers just completely shit their diaper, but other than that, I don't think there was much that was too fluky about it personally. I think that's just the way that things went then. I don't think Trey Young is a notably worse player than he was in 2021, but I also don't know if he's the best player to build around from the onset, so there is that. I wouldn't hold on to that run as like a reason to not change things up a few years from now if that's necessary, is how I'd put it. The Wolves are the best team in the NBA. Cat is back to all NBA form. Yeah, so Karl Anthony Towns just decided to be excellent the moment that I made a video suggesting the team should move on from him, because he really just didn't have much of a place in the offense, and his defense is obviously not great even if it is improved this year. But since then, it's looked like his place in the offense is working out, and if it continues to work out to the degree that it has, then I definitely think there is a very real chance that the Timberwolves are a legitimate contender, especially if Anthony Edwards and his upward trajectory continues to go, well, upward. I don't think they're the best team in the NBA, but towards the top of that conversation, sure. Karl Anthony Towns has been a better player than Anthony Edwards this season. He's been better as of late, but he started the season far worse, and Anthony Edwards has aura, so argue with that. Our perception of the GOAT is pretty silly. We only pick and choose depending on results and disregarding a lot of circumstances. In reality, there are probably 10 plus NBA players that are all about equally great, and some just benefited from luck of the draw / their era. I disagree pretty strongly with the notion that there are 10 players that are equally great. Honestly though, I think there is just a specific elite class of 2 players, Michael Jordan and LeBron James, and then after that, there's like 10 dudes who are pretty much equally great. So to a degree that's true. I just think LeBron and Jordan are number 1 and 2 in people's list for a reason. It's not just because they had the best circumstances, because there are players that get ranked below LeBron that have technically more achievements, at least in terms of championships and even MVPs in some cases, because we acknowledge that LeBron is just simply a better basketball player than them. I do agree that people don't consider the context of circumstances enough very often. People just make blanket statements because unfortunately the shorter arguments are the easier ones to make and the more common ones to make, but anyone having a serious nuanced conversation about this subject is going to acknowledge those circumstances and not be a dweeb about it.
You can imagine why, as the originator of the goatmentary, I selected that one for you.
Yes, I'm the first person to ever discuss who's the GOAT. SGA passed Curry in real time on Saturday. I only caught a little bit of that game, so I'm not gonna comment too much on it specifically, but I also know that it's dumb to say that literally any singular performance puts one player over the other in real time. As of right now, Stephen Curry is still beyond Shea. In terms of actually just putting the ball in the basket, they're probably on pretty equal territory, but because SGA does it inside the perimeter, he's less effective from like a playmaking gravity standpoint, because everybody's less effective than Steph in a gravity standpoint. And that factor alone is going to make me put him over SGA. In terms of just, hey, you go put the ball in the basket right now, they're probably on very equal footing right now. Bam Adebayo is a more impactful player than Jimmy Butler. Yeah, impactful is a fun, interesting word for this conversation. From a defensive perspective, the center position is the most impactful. And if you have a truly excellent defensive center, that player is immediately one of the most impactful players that's going to be on the floor, because that player is most likely to make you a very good defense. Bam Adebayo is maybe the best defender in the NBA, certainly top 5, and that makes a big difference for the Heat on that end. That said, if we're talking about like a superstar level of impact when the situation matters most, I'm always going to trust Jimmy Butler more than I am Bam Adebayo. There's a reason why Jimmy ultimately is the face of that franchise. In a regular season context, I do think Bam is a more impactful player, but when playoff Jimmy shows up, I think it's a different conversation. And that said, Bam Adebayo is having a career year. His offense is as good as it's ever been. His defense is arguably peaking right now. So yeah, Bam's just very good. I don't think that necessarily has to be used to knock Jimmy Butler. In the regular season, Bam's probably been more impactful than Jimmy for like the last 2 seasons before this one. So yeah, it doesn't surprise me, but playoff Jimmy is different from regular season Jimmy. Not sure how hot this take is, but Cam Thomas is on pace to have the best, most improved season of all time. I disagree with this pretty significantly because, yeah, I mean, you might have such a significant points per game differential. That's not really what improvement is. If you want to argue in terms of just pure numbers, he's improved the most, sure, but really Cam Thomas has just gotten more opportunity. Like, he averaged like 30-something points per game as a starter before this season started. So yeah, it naturally makes sense that when he's given those starting opportunities, when he's given those shots that he's good enough to be taking, his numbers will go up. But I don't think Cam Thomas has actually gotten all that much better. If anything, he's regressed as a 3-point shooter. He's gotten a little bit better defensively,